And I think in the ebook, then we talk about things that you can tangibly do as well, which kind of talks to some of those things. So I think, Ian, you touched on well-being, and in the ebook, it talks to all of these four things in more detail. But number 4
Yeah.
talks to your point, Neil, about offer interesting and challenging work. Ian, do you want to just summarize the rest quickly?
Yeah, I mean, well-being's an interesting one. There's lots of stuff around now where if you think of the COVID period, organizations were well on top of well-being and checking in on people and making sure they had the right equipment to work from home and all that kind of stuff. And people remember that, and all that, as we become more business as usual, some of those check-ins have dropped away from managers and things like that. So people are feeling that well-being is slightly on the wane, as it were. So that's important. If we're going through another tough time, another kind of change, if you like, another kind of period of uncertainty, well-being is important in all sorts of ways. Mental well-being, financial well-being through a cost of living crisis, and just making sure people are okay within the roles. I think the humanizing leadership is important. I've mentioned that already. The need to lead people out of tough times and be visible in tough times is important, but in a more human way, where we're empathetic towards how people are feeling. Because the first thing people think about, I guess, or most people think about when a recession comes along is my job safe? Simple as that. So how, understanding that people are thinking like that and feeling like that is really, really important. And leaders who understand that people think like that and are empathetic with it and have communication around that is important.
And I think I was just going to say on that bit as well, it's about how you can bring the human into the way that you listen to your employees as well through the strategy that you put in place. And again, it comes back to the fact that words matter. So the way that you phrase the questions can really help you unpick both of these things, really, and really demonstrate that intent that you have as an organization. So, we ask questions in our surveys around how would you rate mental health right now? And it's all very well knowing what the answer to that is, but it gives you no context, because well-being and mental health means different things to different people. So even being able to ask a follow-up question that says, what else can we be doing to support you, injects that level of care, it sets that intent, and it really humanizes the way that you ask the questions in your survey, that it enables your leaders to be more human by understanding the context behind the questions that have been asked as well.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, and Neil mentioned the valued and appreciated piece, the interest and challenging work is a real interesting one. No pun intended. But it's when we did the state of engagement survey earlier in the last year, which WorkBuzz run every year, and we produce a report from that. About interesting and challenging work and needing to offer that almost as a standard part of the job role, and making sure people understand that as part of the employer brand was well up there in the top 3 things that HR were concerned about. Culture and other aspects of work were also in there, but offering challenging and interesting work that keep people bound to the organization and keep people driving in the role is really critical, really important.
And I've seen organisations do that really well by introducing the ability for people to join special projects. And those are projects that are designed that are cross-functional, that bring people together to work in ways that they wouldn't normally, but it stretches them in ways, it gets them to collaborate in ways that they might not have done otherwise. And that's where kind of real innovation happens as well. So I think that interesting and challenging work is within your job role, but also what are the other opportunities that you can provide for people outside of that gives them exposure, experience, and things that they wouldn't normally do. And that makes them talk about work differently as well, because you're really genuinely providing learning opportunities that are not just that traditional career path up a ladder. And I think, especially for the younger generations coming through, and me, it's that ability to get involved in things and, feel like you genuinely have a voice and the ability to influence what's happening in the organizations that you work with and for as well.
And I think you're right in that, Dawn. I mean, if you think of organizations where we are today, they're very much flat structures. So those traditional old-fashioned career routes of going up, promoted up through layers, isn't there for most people in organizations. So that looking at special projects or looking wider across the organization where you can get involved in different aspects of work life within your organization is really important.
Yeah.
My advice looking at these 4 things to colleagues listening in today would be that please don't think about these things as offering a one-size-fits-all approach to your workforce. It depends a little bit on who you're looking to attract and keep in your company's employment. If you are an employer that is needing to attract a very significant number of school leavers or youngsters coming in from university, I use that word because everyone's younger than me, obviously, then actually their views around what the world of work needs to be and their expectations around how you are going to deliver that world of work for them is rather different if you're hiring people, 10, 20 years older or generations older, or rather different if you're looking to attract back into the workforce those people who've disappeared from it and taken early retirement and are now thinking about coming back, as Ian mentioned, due to the cost of living crisis. And just to reiterate, because this is also backed up by research, this happens to be not WorkBuzz research, but I read quite a lot of third-party materials. There was a really good study published by Mercer on the rise of the relatable organization, which covered about 13,000 respondents in 25 geographies and 15 industries. And it makes this point that actually when you're thinking about better employee engagement, you should be thinking about it in terms of your key retention populations. And you have to look at the world through their lens. So when you're looking at your WorkBuzz survey data, assuming you're an existing customer or thinking about using them, one of the things I always found incredibly helpful was that if I really wanted to look at a segmentation of how younger or older workers were thinking and feeling, I could see distinct differences. And I could look at how I might respond against those distinct differences, where sometimes it's just easier to look at it in terms of what a function or a department or a division thinks. I think you need to cut into the characteristics of the workforce and think about it through a slightly different lens. So you won't find a one-size-fits-all answer under 1, 2, 3, and 4 here if you're thinking about an 18 to 25-year-old population versus a 50 to 59-year-old population. Say, you have to think about it. You have to go where the data takes you in terms of the concerns to respond to.